Alright, everyone, buckle up. Today we're diving into one of the most disturbing and complex cases we've covered yet. The defendant is facing charges for sexual battery involving a minor, and this isn't just any crime, it involves manipulation, betrayal, and a complete abuse of trust. You're going to see a courtroom filled with tension, raw emotion, and shocking statements from both sides. Stay tuned, because throughout this case, we'll unpack every moment of the trial, the defense's claims, the state's counterarguments, and ultimately, the judge's sentencing decisions. By the end, you'll have a front-row seat to every dramatic twist and heart-wrenching revelation.
I'm ready to get out, man. Come on, man. What the fuck you mean, man?
Stay down.
No, man. Get me the fuck out of here, man. Get the fuck out of here.
No, man. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, man. What the fuck you mean, nigga? Get me the fuck out of here.
25 CR 206. The defendant is in court, represented by counsel. We were last here on May 14th, where the defendant pled guilty to count 5 and count 6, both being sexual battery felonies of the 3rd degree. At that time, the court referred the defendant for a pre-sentence report and victim impact statement. Those reports have been completed, and the state is prepared to proceed with sentencing.
Mr. Watson.
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court.
Now, let's break down the defense's argument here. The lawyer is emphasizing remorse, highlighting the defendant's history as primarily nonviolent, and pointing to alcohol as a factor. But watch closely, they're walking a very fine line between explaining behavior and excusing it. The defense is clearly trying to humanize Mr. Welk, painting him as someone who made a terrible, isolated choice, rather than a habitual abuser. Notice the repeated focus on, "this isn't who he is as a person." Classic strategy to sway the judge's discretion. But the gravity of the crimes, involving a minor and breach of parental trust, sets a very high bar for leniency. What do you think? Does remorse matter this much in cases like this?
I'm going to be brief. This was a heinous crime, Judge. This was horrible in a lot of ways, but most importantly, because this was a minor child who almost assuredly didn't fully understand what was going on with somebody whom was entrusted to love her and to protect her. However, Your Honor, this is not indicative of who Mr. Welk is as a person. Yes, he has a record. Yes, he has been to prison, but it's mainly in the past been for drug offenses, I believe some theft offenses, nothing of this magnitude. On this day, and this is not an excuse, Judge, for his behavior, but on this day, Mr. Welk was drinking a lot, was highly intoxicated, and took advantage of his stepdaughter. Since the day I met him, he is in disbelief that he did this. He has expressed to me his remorse and his sadness, and how he hurt her, how he hurt his wife, how he hurt the rest of his family. He knows, Your Honor, that he's going to be spending a lot of time in jail coming up. I know there's discretion with the plea with how much time that equates to. This court has a lot of discretion with that. Earlier in chambers, the state and I presented to the court a joint recommendation for 8 years. I'm going to respectfully ask the court to consider imposing that sentence because I believe Mr. Welk is remorseful. I believe that this is not who he is as a person, and I'm hoping when his time is up and he gets out, which by the way, he's going to be reporting as a sex offender for the rest of his life, so he's going to be under a microscope, he's going to be monitored for the rest of his life, but I'm hoping that he'll be able to piece things together, make amends with at least part of his family. I don't know if he can ever make full amends with everybody or not. And you're going to hear from him in just a minute, Your Honor. But again, I don't think this is who he is as a person. and I'm going to respectfully ask the court to consider adopting the joint recommendation. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, what do you want to tell me before I impose sentence?
Here, the defendant takes the stand. He apologizes directly to the court and the victim, claims personal responsibility, and admits poor choices fueled by alcohol. He also emphasizes the impact on his other children, missing milestones, experiencing family disruption. This is a critical moment. The defense is trying to show he understands the consequences of his actions, not just legally, but emotionally. But here's where it gets complex. He expresses remorse, yet also references alcohol as a main factor, which can appear as partial justification. As viewers, we have to ask ourselves, does acknowledging remorse while citing contributing factors weaken or strengthen his case in the eyes of the judge?
First and foremost, I'd like to apologize to the courts for appearing before them today. I'd like to apologize to the victim in this case. I'm not going to use alcohol or drugs as an excuse for anything. However, alcohol was a main factor in this case. But I take full responsibility for my actions because I chose to make the irresponsible decision consuming too much alcohol than I could handle, causing poor, regretful choices leading to my incarceration. I've read the police reports and feel ashamed, embarrassed, and hurt because that's not the person I am. And I wouldn't be standing here today if I would have just been more responsible. I have 4 younger children that I've let down because of being locked away from them, missing out on watching them grow. Having to deal with that is a heartache alone. The only thing I can do now is work on myself while incarcerated, take advantage of all programs they offer, and become a better man and a better father, and not give up doing so. I have to make this my last time in jail, and I plan to. I'm sincerely remorseful to my victim in this case, letting her down when I was supposed to be a father figure in her life. I beat myself up over this every day. Over this, wishing I could take it all back. I just hope she can grow up in life and leave this in the past, and that it doesn't affect her future. Again, I'm sorry to everyone I caused pain to in this case.
Ms. Alessi?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, the state really turns up the intensity. They remind the court that the victim was only 13 years old and directly witnessed by younger siblings. These aren't abstract numbers, these are real children living through trauma. They also highlight the ongoing manipulation, even after the arrest, through phone calls and attempts to control the victim's statements. This is crucial, because the state is arguing that remorse today doesn't erase the continued emotional harm or the manipulative patterns. Pay attention to how they systematically dismantle the idea that alcohol or prior character can mitigate the seriousness of this offense. This is courtroom strategy at its most impactful, appealing both to facts and moral responsibility.
One thing that the defendant said today in court, and even in his pre-sentence report, that stood out to me is that he was supposed to be a loving and caring father. And I couldn't agree more with that. He should have been someone that the victim could trust and rely on for protection and guidance. And instead, he used his role as a parental figure to manipulate her, exploit her, and violate her. When this happened, the victim was just 13 years old, 13 years and 8 months to be exact. And as much as the defendant wants to talk about the other children in his life, when the defendant committed this offense, it was done in his home, in her home, with his other children present. Not only that, his 4-year-old Sarah and the 7-year-old Ben actually observed the defendant engaging in the kissing and the touching of the victim's erogenous zones. Later, when the defendant went into the victim's bedroom to engage in the sexual conduct, a 1-year-old was sleeping in the pack and play next to her, and there was a 3-year-old in the room who was awake on her phone, according to the victim. And while there is a jointly recommended sentence here, the state believes it's essential to highlight not only what the defendant did pre-indictment, but also what he did after his arrest in this case. While incarcerated, he continued to communicate with the victim while in the Lake County Jail. He attempted to guilt and manipulate her by blaming her for her own suicide attempt at the East Lake Jail. He pressured her to express her feelings to law enforcement about him, or her desire for him to only receive a short sentence. He spoke of wanting to attend counseling together. He emphasized they were a team and told her he loved her, despite being her abuser, despite doing what he did here. And during several of these recorded calls, you can hear the victim crying, further illustrating just the ongoing emotional harm caused by the defendant and his conduct. This behavior demonstrates his continued disregard for the well-being of the victim, his family, and his ongoing efforts to control her and manipulate her. The defendant today in court said he's remorseful, but in the pre-sentence report, he didn't believe he did anything wrong, and he wants to take this to trial. So I'm not sure what this court can believe. He has a lengthy criminal history, including 4 prior prison numbers and 5 felony cases. And all of this, I think, supports the need for a significant term of incarceration, and respectfully ask this court to impose a jointly agreed sentence of 8 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Why did you?
Here's where things get really intense. The court examines contradictions in the defendant's statements. He apologizes, yet previously denied wrongdoing in the pre-sentence report and even wanted a trial. He contacted the victim despite being told not to. This sequence highlights a pattern of ongoing manipulation and a disconnect between his words and actions. For the audience, notice how the judge interrogates these inconsistencies. This is a key moment showing that remorse must be consistent and credible. It's a tough pill to swallow. The defense presents a narrative of personal growth, but the evidence points to continued harm and lack of accountability during the process.
You called her after you were in jail?
Because I was told by the detective I was allowed to.
Okay.
I didn't call her, I called my wife and she answered the phone.
All right. And what contact did you have with her about retracting her statement or modifying her statement?
It wasn't retracting it. We talked about counseling, going to counseling and stuff, because that was something that they was talking about making them do. And something she said she didn't want to do.
Well, trying to, whether directly contacting her or contacting her through your wife, was wholly inappropriate. And it was further evidence of you trying to take advantage of her at that young age, like you did when this happened.
Now she asked the detective if she could have contact with me when this case was all started. Then when I went to my preliminary hearing on February 11th, I asked the detective and he told me the same thing.
All right. Well, you're experienced enough in the system to have the wisdom that you shouldn't have been contacting her. Okay. In talking to her, having about anything having to do with this case. So you've in your statement you say you apologize to her, but then in the pre-sentence report you talk about how you don't believe you did everything you're accused of doing and wanted to take this to trial. What's that all about?
I don't remember exactly what I said, Your Honor, but what I was saying was I don't have recollection of what happened the night of, so I wasn't admitting to, I don't know what happened.
At this point, the court focuses on the defendant's lengthy criminal history, multiple prior incarcerations and felony cases. This history isn't just a number, it frames the risk to public safety and the need for a sentence that protects the community. The judge weighs prior behavior, current offense severity, and ongoing manipulation. This segment underscores the principle that sentencing isn't only about punishment, it's about prevention, rehabilitation, and public protection. Watch how the judge integrates legal statutes, past convictions, and the victim's trauma to arrive at a proportionate yet firm decision. This is the intersection of law, psychology, and justice in real time.
So did you or didn't you do this stuff?
Yes.
And I gotta tell you, it doesn't get much worse than this kind of stuff.
I understand.
You've had a lifetime of criminal activity, but none worse than what has occurred here. So I've reviewed the pre-sentence report and a victim impact statement. I've considered what you have said, what counsel has said. And I've also considered that they've made a joint recommendation of 96 months in prison. And so on count, and I've considered all the provisions in 29, 29, 11, 29, 29, 12, 13, and 14. In consideration of all that, on count 5, I'm going to sentence you to a term of 60 months. On count 6, I'm going to sentence you to a term of 60 months that will be consecutive to one another with credit for 143 days. Consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime by you and for appropriate punishment.
I'm ready to get out, man. Come on, man.
Sit
What the fuck
down.
you mean, man?
Stay down.
No, man. Get me the fuck out of here, man.
And-
You fucking took my plea back, man. Get me the fuck out of here, man. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, man. Get me out of here, man.
Almost done, Judge.
Get me the fuck out of here.
And they-
No, man. Get me out of here. Get me out of here, man. What the fuck you mean, nigga? Get me the fuck out of here. Man, get me the fuck out of here, man. Let me get my leg. Get me out of here, man.
Take him in the chair.
Okay, we're in this chair, man. We're more.
All right.
We're losing the more.
Hold me on your visiting list.
Alright.
For jail and
All right, man. Stop touching me, man. I'm not doing shit, man. I'm not doing shit. I'm not doing shit.
All right, consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime by the defendant and for appropriate punishment. And they are very proportionate to the seriousness of the conduct and the danger he poses to the public. And his history of criminal conduct demonstrates that consecutive sentences are necessary to protect the public from future crime.
To sum it up, this case is a stark reminder of the consequences of violating trust and committing heinous acts against minors. The defendant, despite some expressions of remorse, demonstrated a pattern of manipulation and disregard for the victim's well-being, which the court could not overlook. The judge imposed consecutive sentences totaling 10 years, emphasizing protection of the public and appropriate punishment. This ruling balances legal guidelines, prior criminal history, and the ongoing impact on the victim. If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.